Here we are again. It's fantastic. It's Wednesday. We are talking wine as per usual here on Cellar Chats with the Second Glass for their weekly wine flight. So this week, fresh off of Valentine's Day, I hope you all took care of your Valentine or took care of yourself, because many of you, that might be the Valentine. And you know what? You yourself is important too. So don't forget that. Hopefully you had a lovely Valentine's Day and you're ready to come out and have some really tasty Greek wines, because that's what we're doing this week. It's all Greek and it's fantastic. So we got a couple of primarily A letter starting grape varieties, which is super fun. We get a little Assyrtiko. You know, it's all about tongue twisters this week, I think. Assyrtiko from Papagiannakos. Yeah, go ahead and try and say that 3 times fast. And then we've got a really lovely Agiorhitiko Moscofalero blend for the Zoe Rosé. And then we're going to finish with Domaine Skouras, their Agiorhitiko 100% the St. George, which is named after a specific vineyard on their estate. So it's super fun. I love Greece wines. There's tons of value there. No, most people can't pronounce the grapes, but you know what? You don't need to know how to pronounce them properly to enjoy them. And that is something I think most people forget. So let's get into it. So Assyrtiko, most famously and most well known from the island of Santorini in the Greek Mediterranean. But this particular producer, Papagiannakos, is located in Attica, which is the sub-region in central Greece just below Athens. So we are... because I'm assuming all of you are just whipping out maps right now to look at a map. You're going, ooh, Greece, I have to see what he's talking about. I don't know where these places are. I doubt that you're doing that. I don't expect anybody to do that. But basically, Greece is kind of like an awkward, fork-shaped peninsula that sticks out into the Mediterranean. And you've got the Peloponnese, which is sort of like this little, you can imagine, Greece sticks down, and then there's this little chunk that kind of sticks out. That's the Peloponnese, and that's where Nemea, the region, is, which is where the other 2 wines that we're going to have come from. And then the other part of that, which again sticks out into the Mediterranean, is where Athens is located. So just across a little body of water, you've got Athens, the Attica region, and then you've got Nemea, and the overarching Peloponnese region, which is that kind of awkward shaped, kind of looks like a rhombus, little region that is a peninsula / almost island / I don't know. It's the Mediterranean. Google it. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, that was a long, very terrible description of where we are. But we're in Greece, and we're drinking Assyrtiko. So I've always used this as a way to describe Assyrtiko. It's a really poor way to describe it, but, there's not really a better way outside of just saying it tastes like Assyrtiko. But it comes from Santorini. That is the primary area. It has been brought over from Santorini to the mainland of Greece. It's grown in several different areas, all the way up to the Amindian, Macedonia, which is in the northern, along the border of Greece. And then it's grown in the Peloponnese, and then obviously in Attica here, which kind of makes sense, because if you look at a map, Attica is kind of the peninsula that sticks out, and directly, basically southeast is where all of the Greek isles are, and Santorini is in that little cluster of Greek isles. So Santorini, very tiny island, but makes really incredible wines. I know I keep talking about it, we're not drinking any Santorini wines. Papagiannakos in Attica, just outside the city of Athens, and they are producing really lovely wines, and they make this great little Assyrtiko. So classically, Assyrtiko is very saline, salty air, citrus driven, and there's always this a little bit of kind of soft, sweet brush herbs, in my opinion. I'll say sage. It doesn't really taste like sage, but things that remind me of sage-like herbs, if that's helpful at all. Really vibrant on the nose. Again, you're very close to the ocean in the Mediterranean, warm climate, lots of ocean influence. You can kind of get that idea. Fairly although it is Mediterranean and there's definitely a good amount of rainfall, it's also fairly arid and you've got a lot of sandy soils. Wow, this smells great on the nose. Yeah, wow. Again, that clean mineral, almost like sea air freshness on the palate. Really pretty citrus. It's a little like rounded texture. And what I mean by that, like, think about how the way like a Sauvignon Blanc feels when you're drinking it. It's very bright and very angular. And then having a Chardonnay is very creamy and rounded. This kind of falls in the middle ground, which makes it really appealing. And it helps that it's like 85 degrees outside in the middle of freaking February. So having a nice refreshing white with like this salty citrus character is a great way to kick off the flight and to kick off, you know, your Wednesday, your Thursday, Friday, whatever day you happen to come in and have these lovely flights. Again, that is the 2021 Papagiannakos Assyrtiko. A lot of people will pronounce it Assyrtiko. I've heard other versions of it. As far as I know, Assyrtiko is the correct way to pronounce it, but I could be wrong. I could be butchering it. All right, let's move into the Zoe. So these guys are in the Peloponnese. Remember that like awkward peninsula / almost island looking thing sticking out in the Mediterranean on the west side of mainland Greece. So this is their 70% Agiorhitiko. I'm going to show you that grape there so you can see that. Yes, that is how you pronounce that, Agiorhitiko and Muscofalero, which are the traditional grape varieties of the region. Agiorhitiko being red, Muscofalero being a white wine, or a white grape, which brings, you know, Agiorhitiko for me is, I mean, the best way to explain it is kind of reminiscent of like a fuller-bodied Sangiovese. It's a little more structured, but it's like red fruited. It's a little dusty tannins. It's got some herbaceousness to it. So done in a rosé, you get kind of that similar characteristic, more red fruits. And Muscofalero has a telltale, very floral characteristic, which I find in this wine every time I have it. I mean, it is hard to mistake it. It smells like elderflower, which I find incredibly appealing. So don't be deceived. You're going to smell this wine. It smells very floral. There's a little red fruit, and you're going to go, oh, it's going to be sweet. It is not sweet. It is totally dry, I assure you. But on the nose, it is nothing but elderflower and kind of like white and underripe, like raspberries. Again, lots of freshness, a lot of brightness of acidity. The Muscofalero, along with that floral aromatic, it also has some kind of floral undertones on the palate, which to me really come off as like a texture. And I think I've said this before, but whenever I think of like floral notes on the palate, it generally is in texture. And I think of like, if you're to eat edible flowers, that texture, it's almost like a powdery, like softness. That's what I almost always get whenever I think of like flowers on the palate, is that kind of like powdery texture. Maybe that sounds really unappealing. I find it's very pretty. It's very subtle. It's not an overwhelming flavor profile. The wine is so tasty, really easy drinking. This has been a wine for me that like, oh, hey, I need a really great rosé to drink in the summertime. Like, this is the wine to go to. Because as great as Provence rosé is, there's a lot of bad eggs out there. This wine is exceptional and honestly probably more affordable than most of the good Provence ones. So, you know, don't be afraid. Get into the Greek wines. They're tasty. All right. Again, that was Zoe, their rosé of Agiorhitiko and Muscofalero. And then moving on to Domaine Skouras, their 100% Agiorhitiko, the St. George from the St. George plot in Nemea. So the Peloponnese, as I explained, is that entire like kind of peninsula island there, and then Nemea is sort of like a sub-region, really known for, particularly for Agiorhitiko, and then also a decent amount of Malagusia is grown there, and Muscofalero. But really, Agiorhitiko is the flagship grape of this region. That's what they're most famous for. That's what the most well-known and highly regarded wineries make. And Domaine Skouras, founded by George Skouras, I'm pretty sure that's his first name, is one of the kind of benchmark producers. They make a wine called Megas Onus, which was sort of a like super Tuscan inversion as a super Greek. It was Agiorhitiko and Cabernet. really put him on the map internationally. But Agiorhitiko is the wine and grape of the region and of his home region. So that's the one he puts the most focus on. And again, like I explained, we'll talk about the Rosé. Agiorhitiko to me kind of, it reminds me of like a Sangiovese with just a little more color and a little more structure. I mean, you can see it's not a heavy wine. It's a little bit ruby. On the nose, it's a little richer. It's a little more spice. He does use... George does, or at Skouras, they use a little bit of new oak, so there's some like oak characteristics here, but it's not overwhelming in any way, shape, or form. And just really pretty like dark red, black fruits, more on like the blackberry as opposed to like plum or anything of that nature. Oh, it just like envelops the palate in like juicy blackberries. It's like juicy blackberries and spice, almost like if you made like a holiday blackberry pie with a little bit of like dried herbs and maybe some cardamom. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but that's what I'm getting in my head. Again, you can taste the presence. There's a little bit of oak on this wine, but it's in a way that I think really is appealing and really kind of lifts up the fruit instead of hiding the fruit. Such a tasty wine. And, you know, granted, it's, let me see here. Yeah, 13.9 in alcohol, so not a heavy alcohol. It's not heavy on the palate. So even though it's 75 degrees outside, this is a great red for this temperature. You know, it's finally like, feels like you should be outside grilling, having grilled things. I just want to drink this with a lot of things. And hopefully you will too. So come out, have the amazing Greek flight, enjoy some food, maybe have a post-Valentine's Day Valentine's because maybe you missed out and didn't make reservations. I heard that was a thing. People missed some reservations. They waited too long. Gents, ladies, what were you doing? So, you know, Valentine's Day doesn't need to be one day. Celebrate it all week. You can still come out, have a great time, and treat yourself and your loved ones quite well. So until next week, be good.